Get your ears ready. What's that? Oh, okay. Which one of us are going?
I wasn't 100% sure myself.
Huh? I was just going to do a teaser like we did last.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
All right. Get your memory right and grab your digestive, because this afternoon an Unearthly podcast covers the worst of Doctor Who.
Apparently our streamer is voting with the image he chose for that.
What the? No! God. There.
Hello, and welcome to a special edition of Unearthly Podcast. I'm Randy Ronson McCulloch, and with me is Bill Man in Black Sylvia and Mad Matt Winchell.
Hello.
Every science fiction series has the episodes that just aren't great. Star Trek has Spock's brain. Next Generation has Hotel Royale. DS9 has something, I'm sure. Enterprise has its entire third season, and Voyager has, well, all of it. Doctor Who has ran for 26 seasons of the classic series, and then it's gone on for almost 10 now in the reboot. During this time, there have been some good episodes, and yes, indeed, there have been some bad episodes. Today we are covering the worst of Doctor Who. You may remember about a month ago, I think it was, we covered the best of Doctor Who. Well, here we go to the exact opposite. And we look at what we have decided are the top 9 worst episodes of Doctor Who.
To which we've also accumulated a nice little list to go off of.
And yes, most of us have watched the majority of these episodes, if not all of them.
Or I've tried to watch them, then gave up about 5 minutes in and tossed in the towel.
Boy, somebody has a weak constitution. For Mr. I can watch bad movies.
I'm talking about you, good sir.
Oh, I went back and I watched it. I just had to get in a better mindset. And a bottle of Maalox.
Well, to be fair, I suppose watching the Gunfighters is best when you're drinking. What did they used to drink in saloons in those days? Whiskey?
Whiskey, bourbon.
Yeah, bourbon. Bourbon's probably what I should have been thinking of.
Oh, I was thinking Kentucky bourbon, but they didn't have that good there. Give me a double shot of embalming fluid is closer to what it is. Anyway, the nominees for the worst episode or worst serial of Doctor Who are 1964, I think, Web Planet.
It was season 2, so it would have been 64.
Yep. The Doctor and companions land on a planet where there's a war going on between the ant and the bee people. 1965, or is it 66? The Gunfighters. The Doctor goes to Doc Holliday to treat a toothache and winds up wrapped up in the events of the OK Corral. The Sixth Doctor, Terror of the Verboids, 1986. The Doctor lands on a spaceship where a genetic engineer has created the most homicidal race of plants ever. And the Doctor continues his squabble with the Valeyard as part of the trial of the Time Lord. From the 10th Doctor era, Love and Monsters from 2006. The Doctor faces off against the Absorbaloff. a creature that can absorb the bodies and traits of other people or beings. From the 11th Doctor era, The Wedding of River Song, which is 2011? Yeah, 2011, in which the Doctor goes to his fated death of Season 6 and winds up breaking time. The Angels Take Manhattan, 2012. The Doctor goes back to 1940s New York to save Rory and winds up getting caught in a plot from the Weeping Angels to destroy all of mankind. The Snowmen, 2012. The Doctor confronts the sinister Dr. Simeon and his evil snow and the Snowmen of Doom. And from this year's 2013, Journey of the Center of the TARDIS. The TARDIS crashes into a salvage ship, and he must rescue Clara from death within the TARDIS itself. And The Name of the Doctor, in which the Doctor has to go to his own tomb to save his companions and friends from Dr. Simeon, aka the Great Intelligence. So let's get this started, shall we? First on the list is the Web Planet.
Yes, probably the oldest episode we have on the list.
It is. That's why I'm going to it. I'm going in chronological order. Anyone have a problem with that?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, Web Planet.
Our first two serials, for the record, are the First Doctor. So they were basically picking the worst of the First Doctor with our first two choices here.
Yes. And believe me, there are some wonky things in the First Doctor, but most of it can be played off as, oh, that's just old house. Some things like this, however...
Now, the Web Planet myself, I would turn around and say this is essentially the Tribe of Gum if you stretched it out 2 more episodes and then gave them interesting costumes.
Which makes me want to wrap my lips around a revolver even faster.
The Web Planet was meant to be a kind of an avant-garde piece, a artistic play style episode.
And it was, except that it aged terribly over
even that
the evolution of television.
If you're doing an avant-garde style performance, the content of the avant-garde has to be interesting enough to catch your attention both with and in spite of the costumes. In other words, what you're watching has to be good enough to break through your suspension of disbelief.
And they fell hard on that one.
I can take the costumes in this. I can shrug.
I had no problem with... The only problem I had with the costumes is there were 1 or 2 scenes where I was so busy staring at the Zarbi that I could not pay attention to whatever drivel was going on between the Doctor and Ian and Barbara.
I didn't have that problem. But there are so many scenes with them wandering through the Zarbi, and all you hear are these laser-like chirps. Yeah. And that's the majority of the scene. I think I've maybe finished the Web Planet once, because any other time I watch it, I fall asleep during it.
And for those of you who missed our discussion of the Tribe of Gum, which is a serial that follows an unearthly child, our main problem was that it's just boring and repetitious and just needs to stop much earlier than it does. This is 2 episodes longer than that, but is much the same.
And it's just long, drawn out, boring. Somebody, Flynn, who we still talk to but never actually makes the podcast anymore, has mentioned that if you take it an episode at a time, it's probably okay. I don't know.
Which is another example of it aging horribly as television and Doctor Who have moved on.
Yes. It's just another sign of this doesn't hold up anymore. You have to take your time with it.
Yeah, these days the Zarbi would have been done by the mill.
And while the mill would have done it perfectly, it would have been alright.
So would the Monopoly. Yes, actually, pretty much everything except for the Doctor and the companions would have been done by the mill, I think, except they might have filmed in a quarry.
They
Or
still
in front of
probably
a green
filmed
screen and just said, the mill, just take it over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just take it over and do better than George Lucas, thanks.
Doctor Who, as done by George Lucas. There would be an interesting thing.
Compared to our other nominees, I put this about midway through the list. It's not the worst thing there, but boring and long are also not a good combination.
Yeah, so take it for what you will. It's still kind of... It's a chore to get through, nonetheless. I think I've seen it about once and a half.
Is there anything else we have to say about this episode?
Nope.
Okay, good. Because I dislike this episode. Just out of sheer boredom. Even talking about it bores me.
Where would you place it compared to the other nominees, though? Top, bottom, middle?
I'm not going to make a judgment yet.
Okay.
I will wait till the end to make a positional judgment, because really, you guys could say stuff that will, completely derail my thoughts on something.
I got you.
And either redeem or lower it in my eyes.
Speaking of which, this next one, either Randy's going to completely change his mind, as he just stated, or he's going to punch me in the face. Because of these 9, I found the Gunfighters to be the most honestly entertaining thing that I've watched this week, because of the sheer surreal stupidity of especially the musical going on with everything else going around. The whole "He Knew Johnny's Name" song going on, and it was surreal, and I couldn't help but laugh every time she started singing.
Didn't find it funny. And yes, we are talking about the Gunfighters, by the way.
Sorry,
the Gunfighters is also a case of did not do the research, or in this case, did do the research and chose to ignore it.
Yes, they were essentially, instead of going to the Wild West, they went to the television version of the Wild West.
Yeah, or the theatrical version. A lot of the Gunfighters was based off the movie Gunfight at the OK Corral, starring Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas. Now, the problem is that this was Hollywood Old West and took a lot of liberties. Now, that said, there's a lot of things that went right in the Gunfighters. The set looked pretty damn good.
Yeah, it looked as good as any Western that Star Trek did.
The costumes looked like they came off the set of The Rifleman, which is, comparatively fine for its era.
Mm-hmm.
Had the BBC done any previous Westerns?
What's that? No,
Maybe
this was the first time the English attempted to do a Western.
So I'm kind of curious where they got the costumes now, or if they just literally made them on the spot.
Well, they might have actually borrowed them from The Rifleman, as far as I know. Or they watched Gunfight at the OK Corral and just had their seamstress copy the costume styles as good as possible.
Yeah.
But other than the set and the costumes, everything else in this episode broke down for me. Listening to these English actors attempting to do American accents was just painful.
Which is pretty much the way that Americans were done up to, what, Captain Jack? No,
up to Perry,
Doctor Who the movie, right?
Up to Perry. Perry's American accent wasn't bad, and that was an English actress.
It was...
Yeah.
Big, well, I mean, you could tell it was someone trying her hardest to do an American accent.
But unlike previous, she didn't go for
Texas.
A particularly regional dialect, unless you consider Midwestern to be a regional dialect. Midwestern's pretty much the standard by which most American is. I mean, they actually teach newscasters to speak in that accent, because it's basically considered the most understandable of all American accents. So that's what they had her speak, and it worked. It worked enough to pass, it worked enough for government work.
Yeah, it worked enough that it was clear that she wasn't a legit American, but it worked, it didn't, most of the time did not distract you from what was going on.
Right. Now, these, sometimes they were okay, but other times you would hear them and you would hear just, the certain edge to the English voice that just went, oh. Now, the other problem is that, like I said, they based this off of Gunfight at the OK Corral, which was itself historically inaccurate. It depicts Wyatt Earp as the sheriff of Tombstone, which he was not. It depicts Doc Holliday as a practicing dentist in Tombstone, which he was not. It depicts the entire Clanton gang being killed at the OK Corral, which they were not.
Right now, the things that you're listing are both in this episode and in the movie.
They're in this episode. Some of them are in the movie.
Oh, okay. I thought you were listing things from the movie.
I'm pretty sure the gunfight with the heroes walking away without a single scratch was not in the movie. I think at least somebody shot a little. And anybody who got shot in this episode, or in this serial, was killed instantly. Or not instantly, dramatically. But, there was no way to go for help. Anybody who was shot dead. And usually followed by the song Bill mentioned.
Arg.
Which actually just wound up getting on my nerves eventually.
And now you say being shot followed by the song, I have to wonder if you went through this episode and replaced it with What You Say. Every single time. If it would be better or worse.
I hadn't even thought of that.
That actually might improve it. At least it'd have a running gag.
Yeah. Because my problem is, this episode starts out comedic, with the doctor having this horrible toothache and goes to Doc Holliday, who wasn't a practicing dentist, like I said. The reason Doc Holliday wasn't a practicing dentist, by the way, is he had consumption, which is what they called in the 19th century, what they called tuberculosis. Now, if you know anything about...
had a lot of names.
Yeah, it did, but it was at that point it was called consumption.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing about it is that it made you cough quite a bit.
Generally with blood.
With blood, but the problem was that it made you cough. Now, if somebody has his hands in your mouth and he starts coughing, his hands are going to move.
And there's no anesthetic because it's the 1800s.
Which they actually go into in the episode,
yes,
which is another problem, by the way. The doctor knows he's in 19th century Earth. He should know dentistry is at its infancy.
Now, we said that, how many, has the doctor ever been in the Victorian age before this?
He dresses like he's in the Victorian age. He's been in the early Revolution. He's been in various locations. We're not sure. But the man is well knowledgeable enough to know that dentistry, that local anesthesia wasn't invented until early 20th century.
Which reminds me, what time period is Dodo from? Because she's the one who first points that out, and she's having a good laugh at it.
I think she's in the 1960s.
I think she is from the 1960s.
Oh, okay.
I believe that's where they leave her, and I think that's also where her natural time period is, so yeah.
Stephen's from another era altogether, but I can't remember when.
I think he's sometime in the future. That's all I can recall.
All I know is that shortly after this, they're both replaced by Ben and Polly, so...
Yeah.
They're both popular.
Stephen leaves in the next serial, and Dodo in the serial after that.
Mm-hmm. And then they pick up Ben and Polly.
Yep. And then they replace the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, yeah, it's pretty much episodes are getting, changing people out episode by episode until Evil of the Daleks. Not Evil, Power of the Daleks.
Until 10th Planet, really, but yeah.
Yeah, 10th Planet is the last one that they change.
Right.
No, because then, we lose Ben and Polly shortly thereafter. And we pick up Jamie in the Highlanders.
And I believe
Victoria it's just
and
a
Evil of the
constant
Daleks.
change, isn't it?
No, we don't lose Victoria until Fury from the Deep.
No, I mean, we pick her up, I thought, in Evil of the Daleks.
And then lose her in Fury of the Deep. So...
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of cast swapping going on in this era because a lot of the companions that come in were either too bland or unpopular.
And this episode was also part of a production team change where it was written for one production team and filmed by another, or at least the producer themselves.
It was commissioned by one team and then produced under another. At what point the team came in and if they made any influences to the writing stage, I don't know. This serial was very nearly not filmed at all.
Apparently, the new producer at the time was not a fan of the historicals at all, so pretty much the edutainment idea pretty much died at that point.
And this was the last that killed it.
And this is pretty much the last straight up historical without any form of Daleks or aliens or anything added to it, right?
No, we've got the Highlanders coming up.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So that is literally a straight up historical other than the Doctor?
I believe so, and I believe that's the last one up until Black Orchid, which is a 5th Doctor serial that takes place entirely in Edwardian England. No aliens, no weirdness. Well, some weirdness.
Some weirdness.
But no alien extraterrestrial weirdness.
Yeah.
Everything's in period. And really was filmed as an excuse to have the Doctor go cricketing.
Mm-hmm. And since he was in a cricket outfit all the time, there's kind of a natural thing for him to do.
But yeah, this was the smoking gun that killed the whole historical portion of Doctor Who. The edutainment portion. And this is the main cause of my bitches. At this point, Doctor Who was supposed to be edutainment. You look at the Crusades, you look at the Romans, and they try to get not only, the costumes right, but the characterizations right, the mentalities right. And then here, they just go for this over-the-top claptrap. And it just falls short for me. It's written that it was supposed to be written as a comedy, but I don't find it that funny.
Apparently Bill found it hilarious.
I found it hilarious, but I don't think it was the intentional comedy. I think it was the unintentional stuff more than anything else. Just the surreal, odd decisions that were made going into it. Like making it a musical in the first place. I'm not a huge fan of musicals normally.
I wouldn't mind a musical. What I mind is the same song repeated with different verses. And then, of course, when they have to sing a song in the show, it's the same fucking song! It got to the point, by the end of the second episode, I didn't want to hear the fucking song again. I'm like, make it go away! And
neither did Steven.
But I had to endure it for 2 more fucking episodes. Who was supposed to be singing it anyway?
For a second, at times I thought it was Dodo's voice, but I don't think it actually was.
I think it was supposed to be Big Nose Kate, but, I couldn't really tell.
Although there were also times where I thought it was a singer from the 1950s Iron Man theme song, which would have been fucking awesome, but I seriously doubt that was the case.
No, I sincerely doubt that, too.
Just a similar style.
But yeah, for the stuff that you found amusing in this, I just found tedious and painful. Shall we move on?
Sure. We'll get to our one entry of the 6th Doctor, which actually reminds me...
We skip ahead 20 years.
Yeah, we skipped over the honorable mentions, didn't we?
Yeah. What were the honorable mentions?
We had, let's see, there was the Twin Dilemma, which would have been included if we had a 10th nomination, I believe. I included on that Trial of a Time Lord because we're not considering that to be one story, so too bad. And then there was Time in the Rani, which a lot of people on the internet seem to feel is one of the worst episodes of all time, but I'm pretty sure that none of us are actually quite of the camp that it would belong as really one of the legit worst.
Other
No.
than Mel screaming, I quite like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that was the worst part of that story.
Mm-hmm. Mel, not scream.
A
I
lot
scream
of
by the way,
people
but
dislike
Time
Time
goes
and the Ronnie, the second part of Trial of a Time Lord, Delta and the Bannermen, Paradise Tower, and Dragonfire, all because they just don't like Mel.
I can see it.
That's fine. Mel aside, give me the rest of the reasons these episodes sucks. I have several for Trial of a Time Lord.
Right.
and this
but-
is part of the Trial of the
This-
Time Lord.
Time in the Ronnie also includes the Ronnie edging toward the camp character that she is more clearly in Dimensions and Time. But
Yes,
since we
but
don't
there's
really get a
still
third.
scientific motive for what she's
Right,
doing.
there is definitely, but and since we really don't get a third honest appearance of her, not counting Dimensions, it's
Well,
hard
Dimensions
to really
and Time,
judge
she was
her.
basically the master in drag, really. I mean, you replace the Ronnie with Anthony
I feel like-
Amy's master, and it actually works better.
When you say that, I get an image as though it's actually happened.
The master in drag, probably.
Did it happen in Curse of Fatal Death?
The Dalek bumps.
No, it did not.
Oh. But now I'm kind of picturing Anthony Ainley in like a Victorian dress.
I know the third Doctor's dressed in drag on occasion. He once disguised himself as a washerwoman.
Yes, he did.
It did.
And he also, I
Maybe-
believe, in the
maybe
same
that's-
story,
maybe
he
that's-
disguised
maybe-
himself as a milkman.
Maybe I'm just switching out his face with Anthony Ainley's in my mind. Either way, I want to get rid of it.
Either way, Bill's not having nightmares. You're welcome, Bill.
Well, yeah, let's not get over the fact that that both the Doctor and Anthony Ainley like to dress up as the spy from Team Fortress 2. That's not necessary.
So the actual episode for our next one is part of Trial of the Time Lord, and it is Terror of the Vervoids. Get your anatomy jokes out of
okay.
the way now.
Where do we start?
Well, how about we start with story? This
Which story?
episode particularly takes place in two different stories, neither of which is strong enough to carry anything on its own.
Yeah, but they're not bad, just weak. In themselves, the problem is that the story of
They
Doctor-
rob each
Right.
other's. They
story
rob
of
each
the
other's attention.
One at a time, please.
Okay, go ahead, Bill.
I was just saying that the two stories rob each other's tension, so that what strength they do have to carry themselves on their own is pretty much yanked away every half episode or so.
For me, neither episode is new either.
True.
I mean, the Doctor on trial, well, gee, we go back to the War Games, the final episode of the War Games, that the Doctor's on trial there. He's on trial in Deadly Assassin.
At the Assassin,
We've seen
yeah.
this before. Can we move on? The second one of Madman creates genetic nightmare. Jesus, take your pick of any doctor,
Right.
and there's at least
Actually,
one
in,
story like that.
Actually, I'd prefer to take my pick of Mary Shelley's work. Thank you.
What was the first one called? The Mysterious Planet? Was that the beginning of it? The beginning of Trial?
I think so. Yes.
Even Colin Baker, the doctor, comes into that and he's like, "Oh, I've done this a couple of times. I think I'm experienced with the process well enough."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the basic story of this one, I mean, I know, for instance, that there is a almost identical story in the Fourth Doctor and Romana era. Though for the life of me, I can't remember what it is. In that one, the Starliner actually crashes into another ship, and these samples that these scientists had collected has escaped into the void between the two ships. And there's some horrific monster stuff in there.
And see, that's what you really need, something like, say, a new twist. And you don't have room for a new twist when you're doing another story at the same time that is just as used.
So the story comes off as uninspired and unoriginal. The ongoing overarching seems to distract from it because you really don't get a chance to flesh out a lot of your characters.
I would also add that at this particular time, they were actually being forced to add in more things by the BBC. Such as, oh, it's too dark, add more comedy to it, and we get some of the worst comedy I've ever seen in Doctor Who.
We really don't really see that until the 87 season.
No, they were starting to shoehorn it in right now.
I thought they were trying to soften the Doctor in this. They hadn't gone for the lighthearted comedy yet.
Right, yeah.
Well,
the comedy
yes,
was
actually,
mainly when he
Carrot juice.
I do take that back, yeah. The entire concept of Mel being there is that she's the Doctor's personal nutritionist and trainer, as the Doctor is overweight and he has to exercise.
I don't know, that might have never happened because the Doctor stops every 5 minutes to say, that's not what happened. For all we know, Mel never gave him carrot juice.
Oh no, we know that because as they're walking out, she mentions it and he's like, carrot juice, and that's at the end of,
The story arc, yes.
yeah, the end of the season. We never do find out what happens to it, nor do we care, because of course the next episode becomes Time in the Rani,
Right.
and the beginning of the 7th Doctor.
I'm assuming, despite them having the same production code, that nobody's lumping. Damn it! What's the name? What's the one with Deadliest Foe?
The Ultimate Foe.
Ultimate Foe. Yeah, that nobody's lumping that in with Vervoids, right? We're all considering them two stories.
The
yeah,
two stories.
I just mentioned it because just as a counterpoint to your, it never happened. But no, I'm just considering Vervoids.
I just want to make
Ultimate Foe is its own snag of issues in the fact that it's basically really, really confusing and kind of stonery in the fact of what the fuck's going on.
And I might also finally further add that we already have weak story, we already have extremely weak jokes going on. Then look at our monster.
Oh God, yes. I'm sorry, okay, it's a plant monster. But seriously, can you imagine? It's like somebody said, oh dear, our monster doesn't look specific enough. Let's take it and shape its head to look like a piece of female genitalia. People actually called into the BBC to complain because they were seeing what looked like an enormous big pussy on their screens.
Strangling people.
I mean, that's not what they were aiming for. It's suggestive as hell, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't their intent. Okay, maybe it was the costume designer's intent.
Because probably at this point the costume maker might have been pissed. And someone's having a laugh at you from behind the scenes.
Those responsible have been sacked. But I'm sorry.
No one can look at that costume and not snicker at it wildly.
Or at the very least, once it's been pointed out to you, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
You can't. It is probably the worst piece of costuming from that end I have ever seen.
Hell, I would argue that some of the 60s costuming was better than this. At least they avoided making them look like that.
Yeah, when you see that in retrospect, you want to kind of go back to the Zarbi.
Almost. Except the Zarbi are extremely boring and make loud chirping sounds.
Or even...
Yes, but
I would still put those Zarbi costumes over the Optera costumes, which were... I don't know if they couldn't afford wings for enough of them, so they only put wings on the one... I mean, sorry, the Monoptera, because the Optera were kind of different. The Monoptera without the wings, where it's essentially just a fat suit with bee stripes.
Really, it was like they raided the the Santa costumes for all their fur. The side, of course, of this is the fact that when you're filming in black and white, what you are assuming is color is your mind filling in the blanks.
Right.
When they could actually be another color entirely.
There's also scenes like Steven describing to us what color his tie is because he knows that we can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not Steven, Ian. Sorry.
Ian, yeah.
Yeah, we're not at Steven yet.
Yeah. Their names rhyme, damn it.
But, yeah, it's... But no, the Vervoid costumes were just hideous. And really...
Hey, they went very well with the Doctor at the time.
Yeah, let's talk about that Doctor costume, shall we?
No, because it's really not the purview of this episode. If it had been introduced in this episode, I could see it. We did actually nominate, but honorable mention, the episode where that suit did get introduced.
The Valier does damn it. He does comment on the Sixth Doctor's costume though.
I don't recall.
Oh, because he was saying he didn't do something because he believed it was fabricated by whoever was tampering with the device, with the Matrix. He's like, well, it's clearly you. No, that's kind of an identifiable outfit you're wearing.
And wasn't the big reveal at the end of this serial was that the Valiard was a later version of the Doctor?
Something from between
It was,
11 or 12 or 12 and 13, something
Yes,
like
but
that.
wasn't that the reveal at the? Wasn't that the big reveal at the end of this?
Towards the end, yes.
Yeah.
It was just weird. The whole trial thing was weird. Because really, you know, if you think about it, it's double jeopardy. The Doctor was already tried and convicted of interfering, and now they're trying him for interfering again. What the fuck, guys? Seriously. Now, if they were trying him for dereliction of the presidency,
That could have been something.
bought it.
Right.
But no, they're doing the exact same thing that they did at the end of the Second Doctor era.
This is the purview of this episode. Terror of the Vervoids is a story of the future, which means it takes place after the trial. So, for this to occur, the Doctor must be found innocent.
And of course, the facts of this all allow the Valier to raise the Doctor up to the trial of genocide, which is like killing Hitler when he's 12. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. The story doesn't make a lot of sense. The costumes are scandalous.
And terrible.
And Terabad. And even the base story, boiled down from all the weird elements, is nothing that we haven't seen before.
Yep.
It's just not good, people. Speaking of not good, let's move on again.
Yep. Another 20 years, or just
Another
about.
20 years. To Love and Monsters. Now, in defense of Love and Monsters, and this is the only defense I'm going to give it, Russell T. Davies had to make do with what he was handed because the monster was created by a contest with Blue Peter.
Who judged the Blue Peter contest anyway?
That's what I would like to know.
Because there were definitely better entries that you could look at, you know, that were submitted that I would have picked over this any day.
Yeah, let's pick an amorphous blob with people's faces in it, and then even then they had to change the monster a bit to even make it work in what limited story they had.
I think the kid wanted it to be the size of a bus.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, I believe the creature in the original picture was wielding a bus like a weapon.
Yeah, I think the kid wanted it to be the size of a bus.
The creature in the original picture was wielding a bus like a weapon. Matter of fact, I believe the creature in the original picture was wielding a bus like a weapon.
I mean,
That's some
seriously,
specific
this
grimace
is the
right
best Blue Peter could come up with for a monster. Now, I can see that, pressed for time, Russell T. Davies wrote the episode first and then shoehorned the monster into it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. But I don't think so, because there's too many odds and ends that wouldn't work in the episode otherwise.
I like the random zoom-in shot on the stream of Billy Piper's cleavage.
I think that's some sort of clothing thing, but yeah, that's...
odd in there.
Either that or it was supposed to be based on the reaction that the guy was having to Rose Tyler. Hi, have you seen looking at her cleavage? But, the very concept of the story is at least appealing. Of a guy that, has been his life has been affected by the Doctor, and he's looking to make that connection again.
Right, if you very barely put it down, then you get to essentially...
Oh, go ahead. Oh, I even like the first-person narrative that the story uses for this.
And I also love the fact that the guy is an ELO fan, because I happen to be one too.
That really doesn't factor into my judgment of it, positive or negative.
Yeah, but it helped alleviate some of the pain.
Well, see, whereas for me, it kind of... Is that what they were playing, like, during the Linda meetings and such?
Yes.
Or no?
They were singing ELO, yes.
For me, it just made the parts that I found to be boring just even more boring because I wasn't a fan of that. So I'm just like, okay, get on to the part that's Doctor Who.
Where I was already seeing the Absorber off and going, yeah, don't need to bother with that. Let's go back to the singing, shall we? It's a little less stupid than people not hearing the screams.
And, of course, like I said, the concepts I like, the execution left something to be desired.
Massively.
And then, of course, you get to the Absorbaloff itself, which is such a letdown. And who actually did the Absorbaloff?
Who played him?
Yes.
I didn't know.
Anybody British in the chat want to say his name? Because I'm sure you know it. I don't know if anyone's in the chat right now. Let's see.
No.
Bringing up the Absorbaloff page. Peter Kay.
Peter Kay. All right. For somebody like Peter Kay, who is a well-known comedian, this was no way to introduce him to the world of Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was saying to I believe I was saying it to Randy and Matt before we started streaming it. It kind of comes off to me as telling British fans, okay, we know this is a rubbish episode, but we're going to put a comedian you like into the role to make it a little more bearable.
Because you like him, don't you? Right? Right?
It does nothing.
And some of the choices that the Doctor makes when he finally does walk on the screen.
And the episode was comedic, yet Kay's role was serious. The fuck? I mean, seriously, for what you did with him, you could have cast Mike Myers in that.
You could. He was trying to make his lines funny, but there was nothing funny in the script for him to work with.
Yeah.
So you could tell he was delivering his lines like he was trying to say something funny, but there was nothing funny for him to say.
There was nothing really unique for him to do there. I really would have liked to see him in a different role where we could have actually got to know his style. But, yeah, it was just a bad fit. It was a bad role. It was pretty much a bad costume, since all they did is basically modify a Slovene costume, take the head, replace it with a different head, and add faces to it. Oh, yeah, and recolor it.
Slightly.
I think Matt was about to describe turning Moaning Myrtle into a fleshlight.
Yeah, and that. As I was kind of mentioning earlier, we do finally get the Doctor in modern time during this episode.
Although he only shows up so that Rose can bitch at whatever the hell his name is.
Yeah, they only really show up to let Rose have at the guy for having dated Rose's mother for a short period of time and so on and so forth and leaving on bad terms. But then the Doctor actually stops the Absorbaloff, killing it, and then decides, I'm going to try and bring back the people it absorbed, to which I can only bring back one, and I can only bring them back slightly. Look at this picture, folks. Look at this. She is a head on a fucking slab. And you know what they do with that? A blowjob joke.
That was Russell T Davies right there, having a very juvenile sense of humor. And basically going, I've got nothing. He's probably sitting at the end of there trying to write the end of this and going, I've got nothing.
I got no. Yeah, pretty much. It's probably Russell T Davies going, oh god, I have nothing. It's going to be terrible, but you know what? Just throw it out there. God.
And of course, Russell T wrote this, so it's not like he had a script editor who could be like, hey, add this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's more like the BBC going, hey, add this.
At the same time, it's noble that he took it upon himself
I agree,
trying to weight down one of his other writers with what he knew was already going to be a ginormous piece of crap.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the second he was handed the picture of the Absorbaloff.
Probably.
I want to know.
Yeah, I could see him.
Was it his idea to do the contest, or was it the other executive producer?
It was Blue Peter out of the clear blue.
It was probably Julie. What was her name? The other executive producer. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know they were both executive producers. So, but basically his counterpart.
Yeah. The one that actually approached him. Gardner, Grader, something like that.
Gotcha. And even I can even understand the idea of wanting to do the contest, but
that was definitely not the right direction to go with that contest, and not the right direction to go for an entire episode.
Well, you've noticed since then that he that any contest that they did with Blue Peter after that was a mini-sode.
If anything.
Julie Gardner, I was right, yeah. But, yeah, was a mini-sode, which does not necessarily have to fit in canonical times. The Goal for the Gold, I think, was last year. And, the guy with the winner of the contest that got to be in a little Doctor Who mini-sode with Jack Harkness. Playing another completely stupid monster. Both of them, though, weren't really in continuity.
I'll tell you, wasn't the Go for the Goal? Was that the one where it was literally treating the TARDIS as a set that Captain Jack was running?
No, that was the other one I was talking about.
Okay.
Go for the Gold was the one that had Matt Smith involved in the 2012 Olympics, which we found interesting because David Tennant had already done that. But it was written by another Blue Peter winner, if I recall. And they just acted it out.
The one I'm thinking, I think was called Good as Gold.
That is Good as Gold, I think. I know the one you're talking about, I just don't remember its name. But any other contest they've done since then has not actually been put into the main canon, I think because Love and Monsters was such a horrific failure.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking of Tonight's the Night. the winner of the Doctor Who Alien Talent Search competition, starring the competition winner Tim Ingan as Sao Teal and John Barrowman as Captain Jack Harkness and David Tennant as himself. Where it looks like it's this epic fight between Jack Harkness and this alien, and then it turns out to be John Barrowman and this guy basically fooling around on the set. And David Tennant comes in and interrupts them. That's the one you're talking about, Bill?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, that's Tonight's the Night.
I only watched it once a while ago. Wasn't 100% sure of details, but yeah.
Good as Gold was written by the children of Ashdean School and was a Blue Peter winner, which was the TARDIS lands in the middle of London 2012 Olympics, where they're visited by this panicked runner who says he's being chased by something, and it turns out to be a weeping angel who's trying to seize the Olympic flame and rob the planet of goodwill. And the Doctor basically makes it go away with a sonic screwdriver.
This one set of Olympics includes a spaceship that is powered by love and a monster whose goal is to rob the world of goodwill.
And suddenly the Doctor is capable of destroying weeping angels with a sonic screwdriver, which is...
Well, he's capable of turning Catherine Tate into a Rose action figure with a sonic screwdriver.
Oh, come on, that was great!
Yeah, it was.
That was great!
I feel like if I ever ran into them both at a convention, I would just ask him if he was speaking English. Just to
get
a reenactment of that.
That particular character was one of Catherine Tate's well-known characters.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
And that was just a wonderful little bit with him showing up as a teacher and her doing this. I thought it was just awesome.
With his own accent, not with his Doctor accent.
And then eventually he just gets pissed off enough, breaks into the whips out the screwdriver, turns her into a Rose action figure, and goes back, and everybody else in the class just shuts up.
And even though our diverging is probably at least half my fault, we do have a lot of ground to cover.
Yes.
Anything else on this?
But no, again, those were all mini-sodes, so they weren't there.
Yeah.
That goes to show this. They kind of realized probably after the contest went live that that was a mistake.
And I think this
when
is
they got the
Dr. Light episode as well.
Yeah, I think it was an excuse for David Tennant to go run and do something else too.
Yeah, he was filming another episode at the time, but I mean, I think this is the least of the Doctor that you get in a Dr. Light episode, I believe.
Other than Mission to the Unknown, yes.
Weeping Angels.
Oh yeah, I'm talking of the new show, not because that was before Dr. Light was really existed.
Yeah, it's even less than Blink, which was the Dr. Light episode the next year.
Because Blink was able to use the same 3-minute shot of the Doctor about half a dozen times.
About us cringing.
Yeah.
Which is a feat in of itself.
Although, if you take a single episode by itself, Human Nature may be more Doctor Light, but not Tennant Light.
Right, because it's the Doctor, but he's not the Doctor. But
right.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even Tennant playing another character. It's literally the Doctor, but he's not himself.
Right.
But then that episode also focuses entirely on Martha.
So, moving on.
Yep.
We move on to the Wedding of River's Song, which is the episode that pissed me off the most in season 6, and that says something for a season of which I only liked one episode, and it wasn't this one.
my own comments on this episode, while I was able to follow the plot of the rest of the season, the first 2 times I watched this episode, I forgot what happened immediately afterward because
That's the silence.
That much, yeah. And just that much random bullshit going on, and of course another reset button.
That fixes everything, and River Song goes from Super Sue to God Mode Sue.
At least the doctor calls her out on it and outsmarts her.
As I mentioned in our review of the Pandorica Opens not that long ago, River became a Mary Sue in the episode with the Weeping Angels, where they go. She basically starts being smarter and better at everything than the doctor.
And so did Amy, but in different ways, because she's all of a sudden considering herself the doctor's confidant and everything, and I'm like, didn't you two just meet?
But she goes from that to Mary Sue there. She jumps up to Super Sue when in Pandorica Opens, or excuse me, in the Big Bang, where she makes a Dalek beg for mercy 3 times. And here she goes for God Mode Sue, where she avoids a fixed time or a fixed point in space on a whim. Sure, it comes back to bite her in the ass, but she does it.
Well, at least it's not so much a whim, but the way she composes herself about it. Basically her acting as though the laws of time are her bitch.
Yeah, and not only that, but she's supposed to be programmed to do this. She's supposed to not have a choice, and she's just like, nah, because I'm just that good. And that's literally the explanation for anything River Song does, is I'm just that good.
Which is bullshit and crap writing.
We'll be discussing that more when we get to the next episode with her that we're talking about. My own 2 thoughts on this episode is, at the very least, this is another one where there's 2 stories going on. The difference is the flashback story, where everything that happens before River breaks time, I think is actually a good story. The doctor trying to come to a solution, coming up with something and everything else. I think that part is a good story. It just the other story going on
to last 45 minutes.
Right.
So they have River break time, and you wind into this fucked up weirdness that is everything occurring at the same time.
It's also a parody of Doctor Who, because you even get to the point where the silence, they're like, oh, Rory keeps dying. You're gonna die again. I'm like, thank you for pointing out
Rory,
repetitive.
Season 5's and 6's personal Kenny. I'm serious. If South Park did Doctor Who, the 11th Doctor era, Rory Williams would be played by Kenny McCormick.
Well, he also dies 2.5 times in Season 7 at the very least.
See, for me, on the other hand, this is a part of the half of a season I have never dared to watch, and I have no interest in watching, because I guarantee you I'll just be sitting there foaming at the mouth for about a week and a half. And the only thing you probably would get out of me is piece of fucking shit the entire time.
And this is why Matt is a gutless wonder.
If you cut out Adult River, I wouldn't mind that season so much.
Yeah, mind you, I say the same thing about Season 5, too.
Cut out River, period.
If you cut out River being this badass God Mode Sue for most...
Or even if she was written as a character.
As an actual character, as someone who was made as more of a companion to the Doctor, not as his better.
Or even if she was written as the female version of the Brigadier, that would be a good equivalent for someone like her.
Mm-hmm.
Except, different, but...
The character of River Song is based loosely, and I say loosely, on that of Bernice Summerfield, who is a companion from novels and some of the audio dramas. and a very popular one. What's the difference, you say? Bernice actually fits into that niche as a companion friend, kind of a cross between the Brigadier and Sarah Jane. River, however, tries to take over and become better than the Doctor at everything in the universe.
To which the fans continue to bullshit.
Yes.
She's a perfect example, and you can see other examples, but she's the most blatant example of Moffat's ego when he writes his seasons, where he's saying, I need to put something in here that's as important to the mythos as the Doctor. So here's my rubber-stamped Doctor equal or greater character.
Which again is another sign of stupidity and poor writing.
It's a sign that Moffat has really let being the executive producer of Doctor Who go to his head. In much the same way that you could say Rick Berman did when he took over the Star Trek franchise from Gene Roddenberry. The first thing he did in his first season is pretty much obliterate any continuity that RTD had put forth so that he could replace it with his own. Except he doesn't really like continuity, so what we've had there thus far is 3 seasons of higgledy-piggledy.
And we're definitely going to probably have a rant or two about that in an episode coming later, although we have already done a feature-length review of that episode, so maybe not.
So we will move on from this, just to say that it's confusing, it's poorly written, and it really shows the devolution of certain characters in Doctor Who, which is why it's nominated.
And I will say actually not, I was going to say that of the 11th Doctor episodes here was among my top, but it's not really, just because there's so much that could be cut out of it and replaced with something different.
Something better.
Yeah.
You could cut this into a 25-episode single ep and have it be 1,000,000 times better. Anyway, the next episode that we're going to talk about is what's called the season 7.5, or season 7. It's basically the halfway point of series 7.
The 7A finale.
The 7A finale. Angels Take Manhattan. Now, we reviewed this episode, if I recall.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And we, I think, unilaterally hated it, except for Flint.
My stance, and I kind of take the same stance, is that it has some really great ideas and some really terrible ones mixed in with a good visual style if they didn't feel the need to put in that one stupid effect for the sake of shock value. And you all know what effect I'm talking about.
The Statue of Liberty Angel.
Yes.
I recently rewatched this episode, and I had my iPod ready on, or not my iPod, excuse me, my phone ready on YouTube, and whatever that angel showed up, I started playing City of Love. And suddenly the episode became hysterical.
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters 2. Please tell me, Bill, that you've seen Ghostbusters 2.
Yes, I have, just not in years, so I didn't recognize
The music they play when they ooze the inside of the Statue of Liberty.
And send it walking down New York City to the Metropolitan Art Building. They're playing City of Love by Jackie Wilson. Suddenly Matt likes the episode for that.
And when we did go over this the first time, I think I was the only or close to the only person who didn't consider it the worst episode of the season up to that point.
I absolutely hated the episode from the moment I saw the Statue of Liberty Angel, and then I thought more about the episode, and the more I thought about the episode, the less I liked it. And I can say
it was
that
interesting. at the time, I don't think any of us really complained about River, but when I went back and rewatched it,
No, I believe Randy ranted about River.
I said, though, that for the most part, she was sedate in this episode, except for 2 or 3 scenes.
Yeah, like, she was so freaking smug. Upon rewatching it, all I could think of was wiping the smirk off of her face.
Now,
she's like, even I couldn't pilot the TARDIS into this, and even the Doctor got pissed off at that.
Yeah, that was one of the scenes I had umbrage with. And I think she compares her stolen time manipulator as being a superior to the Doctor's TARDIS.
Well, she basically describes it. I think it was basically described as a motorcycle avoiding the traffic.
Which
she said less bulky than the TARDIS. She said
we had gotten that the other way around when the Doctor was referring to that versus the TARDIS as like a sports car versus something. Like a Volkswagen Beetle or something. I can't remember. It was around Utopia. It was around the season 3 finale. Or series 3, I should say. But, it was that scene and I think just a couple of other parts in there that were there. Otherwise, I found that she mostly stayed sedate and behind the Doctor. But yeah, those particular scenes where she was allowed to be that is what's for you. I have something for you, Bill. Go back to the 5th series and watch River in the two Weeping Angels episodes. Because you know what? You'll find her to be that smug and that out of whack already. I think that's the point that she insinuates that the TARDIS makes its wheezing, grinding noise because the Doctor leaves the parking brake on.
Yeah.
To which I could deck her, because that's bull.
I pretty much wanted to slug the TV when she made
her first 3 appearances were Silence in the Library, where she basically implies that Tennant is the worst Doctor. The Angels 2-parter, where she implies that the Doctor doesn't know how to fly the TARDIS despite doing it for 1,000 years. Then the Pandorica Opens and the Big Bang, in which the Pandorica Opens was the first time I could stand her as a character, and as we've discussed, she kind of ruins that in the Big Bang.
Yeah. Where does she imply that Tennant is the worst Doctor?
Well, she's basically going through the whole thing, like how about how the real Doctor would have solved all these problems by now and wouldn't have all the problems that Tennant is and such.
And that he can't open the TARDIS with a snap of his fingers and so on.
She teaches him how to open it by snapping his fingers. Because of course she knows more about the TARDIS than the Doctor.
I really have to rewatch those and see if they piss me off enough again. Because I really did not get pissed at River's song in Silence of the Library Forest of the Dead.
I wasn't either, but going back to it, there are some insinuations, yeah.
Okay, so.
Anybody else want to say anything about Angels Take Manhattan?
It's freaking stupid.
The whole plot makes no sense. There's a lot of circular time logic in there that makes no sense trying to apply any known law of time to it.
Particularly trying to figure out how the angels work and how they can somehow draw energy from teleporting someone across space, and that somehow feeds them.
Yeah, that alone was already starting to get head-scratchy, but they've only grown more ridiculous since then.
I think this was the last appearance of the Weeping Angels, Matt.
Thus far, yes.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, the other part is the fact that Weeping Angels are proof that Moffat cannot write any form of continuity, even among the stuff he's created for himself.
Because as I mentioned already, yeah, he keeps warping the continuity of these bastards every
As
time.
we mentioned, I think it was last week, he can't keep continuity within one episode.
Yeah.
He keeps contradicting himself in his own stories and his own writing. And that's not only the sign of a bad writer, it's the sign of a bad script editor. And which is why he really needs to step down as the head of Doctor Who and let somebody else who is willing to put that extra effort into making sure that everything makes sense actually does take charge and go back to writing 1 to 2 episodes a season where I did not mind him that much.
Right.
And go back to writing scary, damn it. The Empty Child, the Dr. Dan,
I like how you say that
scared the socks off of me.
Angels Take Manhattan is probably one of the... I mean, it's a monster movie. Well, not a monster movie, but a monster type of thing. So it's probably... It's the type of thing that's the closest to horror that he's really come as showrunner. I mean, it's a noir story.
As showrunner, yeah. But it had a lot more potential than they utilized. He could have been a lot creepier.
It could have been better.
Did basically write the Weeping Angels to be that level of creepy, but he hasn't really been able to utilize them properly in the episodes given. For one, actually no, I will give him points on this one for creepy. The Weeping Cherubim.
Oh yeah.
Those things were freaky.
Mm-hmm.
Those things creep me out, and unlike people who have bitched about it, the fact is this: Weeping Angels have to come from somewhere, so that's my response. The fact that they're baby Weeping Angels, I have no issues with. What I don't want to see is how Weeping Angels breed.
Yes, for love of God, Moffat, don't.
We did discuss when we did the full-length review of this episode the idea that they might just be adult Weeping Angels, but their form is that of a cherub.
Awesome.
I don't think of them that way. And I don't like it if that's the case, because the fact that this particular episode seems to have them being able to affect any statue at will and change their appearance, which is something they had never been able to do before. The Weeping Angels that were in the second one only didn't look like Weeping Angels because they were so weak that their forms had essentially eroded.
Right.
I just didn't like that concept. Anything else about that one?
That Weeping Angel should have mauled River Song.
Yeah, oh, yes. Oh, yes. But it couldn't because River Song is such a badass. And I'm saying sarcastically. Because after all, River Song is capable of kicking Chuck Norris in the balls and walking away.
Only because Bruce Lee's not there.
Anything else?
Not really on that. The next 3 episodes we have coming are actually ones that were nominated by the podcast itself. These are our 3 lowest rated episodes since we started rating episodes on the podcast. Angels Take Manhattan was, I believe, the last one we did before we started rating them. And then each from there, these are all episodes that receive between a 1 and a 2 out of 5 from the group.
The first is the Christmas special for 2012, The Snowmen. Anybody got anything to say about The Snowmen?
Other than the effects being a little bit on the cheap side, it still didn't bug me that much.
The Snowman is kind of proof why having a mid-season episode be your Christmas special is a bad idea. Because you have episodes, you have a gap, you have a day that the vast majority of the world is not at work or at school, and more of them are going to be watching Doctor Who, and then you have another gap. So putting an episode that's continuity heavy, that relies on knowing the fact that, that it relies on both Angels Take Manhattan having been watched by most of the audience and by Asylum of the Daleks having been seen by a good fraction of them, is really a bad decision when you consider this episode probably seen by more people than both of those put together.
This was also the last episode, I think, that we had Flynn on the podcast, wasn't it?
I'm not. I know we had.
No, yeah, we didn't have Flynn. We had guests though.
Because I remember bitching with Flynn over the fact that the snowman, that the Doctor in this acts like this sulky. I said that the acting on Matt Smith's, or at least the writing for his character on it, went way over the top.
I think that was actually an argument you have,
wrong.
Bill.
Actually, the Snowman is actually the first one we rated. But what I'm saying is that we had the three of us who each gave the episode a 3, and then John and Opal who each gave it a 0. It's not even television score, which are the only times that that score actually appeared on the podcast, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've given a 0.5 before, but I don't think I've given a 0. And actually, the one I gave a 0.5 to, I think, is going to be later in here. No, but what I'm saying is the fact that you have the Doctor who has basically just dealt with Angels Take Manhattan, where he, discovers the fact that, yes, he's lost the access to Amy and Roy, but that they had a life, and they had a good life together, and he still goes into this horrible, sulky, reclusive pout that makes David Tennant's I Travel Alone during the Series 4 movies pale by comparison.
And by the way, this is after he's repeatedly, throughout the past 3 seasons, left Amy and Rory to live their life while he traveled alone for sometimes decades at a clip without them, and then came back when he felt like picking them back up.
This is more of Moffat basically trying to railroad us into thinking that Amy and Rory are the most important characters in the universe to the Doctor. And I never really saw them.
I believe it's described at some point. He was basically imprinted. Yeah, that's right. This is how Amy, or the Doctor describes it to Amy in Angels Take Manhattan, that he essentially, when he regenerated, he imprinted on her like a baby chicken.
Which is completely new.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that the 6th Doctor and Perry did not have that kind of relationship.
Nor did the 7th Doctor and Mel.
Well, I mean, the 7th Doctor was pretty upset when Mel left, and she pretty much left with no warning either, but...
No, she's just like, oh, I'm leaving, Doctor. Oh, you can take her.
It wasn't even that. It's like, yeah, I'm staying with Glitz instead. Absolutely no motive discussed.
But really, that was how it was done in the classic. Look at the end of Invasion of Time. And you just get a, Doctor, I'm staying. Why? Grab Xandred's hand. This is new.
Yeah, but at least most of them, they were like, yeah, I've fallen in love with this person, whereas she's just like, hey, she didn't even say that. She's just like, no, I'm traveling with him instead, because I'm still going to be a traveler, but...
I still think the best companion departure to date was Susan's.
Probably.
That was the first companion departure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was the Doctor being sudden and abrupt, but at least there was some foreshadowing there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
very similar to that was what was the episode name? The one right before Deadly Assassin.
Hand of Fear, I think.
Like, I haven't seen that serial, but I've watched the clips of Sarah Jane's departure in it.
It's just like, oop, you gotta go.
And Sarah Jane was already kind of thinking, I'm thinking about leaving anyways.
Joe's departure wasn't bad in the Third Doctor era, where she slowly falls in love with the other
Right.
scientist.
Although it would have helped if she had met. Or I mean, I don't think his name was brought up in any other episode in the season, was it? Like
No,
No,
it
no,
was literally a character of the episode of the story.
if they had done a Harold Saxon with him, I think it would have been better.
like
But
if
then
she
again,
falls in
that
love with,
generally
Mike
wasn't
Yates
done
or
in Doctor
something.
Who at the time.
Like if she really brought his name up a couple of times, like she actually knew what the guy was doing for
Right,
quite a
right.
while
Or
now.
if she had fallen in love with another character that was leaving the show, like fallen in love with Mike Yates or something,
Yeah.
and had Yates and her depart the show instead of having Yates become the betrayer.
The heel turn, yeah.
Really, the only thing that makes it kind of believable is the way that they constantly reference the similarities between the professor and the doctor. So it's kind of like, okay, she's taking her human doctor and running.
Kind of.
Kind
But-
of, sort of.
Still, the thing is though that the fact that there are all these big goodbyes that the Doctor has dealt with is the Doctor has dealt with this countless of times. He has never imprinted someone on someone before to the fact that his
Yeah.
life, that he
That he stopped being the doctor.
right.
I mean,
He's
yeah,
very-
like
Unless you take, and this is my only justification for that, if you take the fact that this has been building up since essentially Doomsday.
Yeah.
if you go by that, he's going to kill himself when Clara leaves him, because that's really the only way to escalate any further, or turn into just do a complete heel turn.
Which would be a great way to bring in the Valeyard.
Oh, yeah.
If they were going to do that, it would be a great way to bring in the Valeyard.
Or John Hurt.
Let's not go there.
If it would have just been
will
John
share-
Hurt as the Valeyard, it would have been perfect. But no, that's not what they're doing.
We will bitch about this later. Do we have anything else to say about the snowmen? Yeah, the CGI was crappy.
The CGI for the Ice Woman was crappy. The CGI for the actual snowman was actually pretty good.
Even there, that could have been a little better.
It could have been, but I've even seen pictures of people going, "Merry Christmas! Have a wonderful nightmare." To some of the pictures of the close-ups of snowmen.
Really, its placement and its inaccessibility to new people, despite it being the introduction to Clara and being Christmas, are my main criticisms of it.
Yeah.
Is the Doctor's behavior seems irrational and over the top.
And I do agree. It's
Mhm.
just not as big of a complaint as the other criticisms I had.
My original complaint that Richard E. Grant was underused, I have since withdrawn.
Because they got to keep
Right,
using
because he
him.
became the great intelligence.
Yes, I have since withdrawn that one. Although I now complain that Ian McKellen was underused.
True.
I found a few of the concepts rather ludicrous, like the Doctor essentially hanging out on a cloud.
Oh, speaking of concepts that are ludicrous, either you've forgotten to or you're itching to talk about Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Oh, I suppressed that. I think I'd pretty much...
Thank you for bringing up that sore wound, Bill.
Yes, the fact that they...
I watched the scene and Randy's voice just came into the back of my head.
And the voice yelled, "Bullshit!"
Seriously, what did my voice say? I would like to know this. I would like to know what my voice is being credited for.
Just the, what was the last episode that you ranted about? It pretty much just playing that in my head. About the deer hunting cap not coming into play until years later and such. Or maybe
God,
we
I
just...
can't remember what we were
Actually,
talking about with
I
that.
think we discussed that when Lucas was here, so that would have been when we were doing when we were doing Doomsday. Why?
Why did we come up with that?
Why? I don't
Yeah.
know.
But it's the truth. The deerstalker cap, which has become a trademark of most people's mental image of Sherlock Holmes, is not a Conan Doyle creation.
And of course, well, and Moffat really should know that, considering that he lampshades that in his other series that Sherlock Holmes appears in.
Yeah, you know.
That he co-writes.
So it makes you wonder what's going through his head when the doctor comes out with the full deerstalker and everything. God, yeah.
Oh shit, I need to get this to the director quickly, is what's going through his head.
Either that or it was just simply costume designing going, hey, he's coming out like Sherlock Holmes. Okay, let's get out the deerstalker.
So that way everyone
And
can leave
Moffat
this side
went,
grown.
eh.
Oh, another thing, just kind of jumping back to Angels Take Manhattan. Actually, I'm not sure if it might have been you, Randy, that might have mentioned it the first time we discussed this, but this struck me for the first time rewatching it, where he's like, I always tear out the ending of the book, as he tears out a random page in the middle. I'm kind of wondering the discussion that went on between Moffat, the director, and Smith during that scene.
And why none of them... probably what happened is there's probably several takes of him trying to tear out the end of the book and failing. It must be in here with some nasty adhesive.
I think the mill could have done something with that after the fact if they had to.
But they didn't bother. And it wasn't in the budget.
Yeah.
Well, we still have 2 more to cover after this.
Yep.
So, shall we?
We move on to Journey of the Center of the TARDIS. Oh my God.
Journey to the center of the bollocks.
This is an episode that I would believe existed better if they claimed that every page of the script was written by a different person who hadn't read the script that came before it.
Yeah,
Oh.
almost.
It's
or
not even
watched
that.
an episode of Doctor Who before.
I have never seen... I had originally, after watching the beginning of 7B, been of a mind that, I was in a good mood. I'm like, hey, Moffat's got his groove back.
Like even
I'm all this. Then we get a series
with some of the complaints that we had, it was still, kept a certain level of basic competency with minor complaints.
And then we were hit by...
The third episode was, ooh, and then...
No, you're thinking in your own... What did you say, Matt?
The second episode was kind of the singing episode. The third episode was kind of the flip-flop of, I believe, the exact same reaction to the second episode, to which I still went, ooh, because I liked it better.
Yeah. My problem was, okay, we got two episodes in a row that were half good, half bad. For me, and it's like, okay, these could have been better. But they were, for me, I gave them, I think, middle-of-the-road ratings.
Yeah, we pretty much all gave them middle-of-the-road ratings. Hyde was fairly similar as well.
Hyde was fairly similar, but it had its flaws that we were poking into.
Right.
Yeah.
And looking at the ratings, we had a 4.6 for Bells of St. John, 2.9 for Rings of Cotton, 3.1 for Cold War, a 2.666 for Hyde. And then we had Journey to the Center of the TARDIS, which we essentially universally agreed whatever the lowest score we could give it is what we were giving it.
No. If we were going to 0, I would have given it a 0.5.
Well, I listed them all as 1s because I was pretty sure that was the lowest we were going. But
Oh no, we can go to 0. We can go to 0 because it's insulting. No,
I give it a little bit because some of the sets were cool. The library set was cool.
As much as I like decent sets and all, a set does not make everything.
No, it does, but it does make it above nothing.
the sets are the best thing about this episode, although fact that there are Jeffries tubes included in the set, I believe, was a question we discussed.
Yes.
Yeah.
When did the TARDIS develop? When was the TARDIS redesigned by Matt Jeffries? Yeah.
Which is another sign of even more problems.
But yeah, when you can't even figure out how the TARDIS is powered. You bring in the Eye of Harmony, the power source of the TARDIS,